Hello and welcome back to day 2. Let's write that in there. Big old 2 of the weight loss challenge. Now, today I'd like to give you a little thought behind the process that we're going to do so that you can trust it, so that you can start taking these simple behaviors that take just minutes a day to implement, start implementing them for the duration of the challenge. And if you do, hopefully you'll start developing these lifelong behaviors that both make and keep you lean for life. So, a little bit about the process here. So I deal with something called Mindware. I'm a fairly advanced learner. I skipped several grades in school. I have an Ivy League education, and I've spoken to some of the best in the world about these topics. And the thing is, I've kind of put all of this into a system for learning, and we're just going to use this to give you results very quickly. So the first step is I made a special acronym, which I'll share with you in a minute, for this challenge, and they're just simple behaviors that you can tie to your eating activity. So you don't forget this stuff. So you're not like, oh, what was I supposed to do? Or you're like, oh, I forgot to do that today. You're going to be able to do this every single time. So these right here are the triggers that I talk about in the book and also in my boot camp. And the first one is activity. So we're tying this mnemonic to an activity, which is simply eating. So when you're trying to take these ideas and bring them out into the world and make sure that they get used and so forth, you need to have some kind of a trigger. If you look at BJ Fogg's behavioral model, we have motivation, ability, trigger. A lot of people have the motivation right now, right? To succeed with this challenge, you have the ability, less than 15 minutes a day, to succeed with this challenge. And we just need a trigger to make sure that you're going to succeed with this challenge. Now, what do all of us have in common that we can use as a trigger, right? I already kind of put it down here, but my idea was eating. So that in my process, I'm going to go through, up with a lot of ideas related to eating, different kinds of words that might work out. And the acronym I ended up coming up with is chewing. All right, so we have chewing, and we're going to talk about the H first. And we're actually going to talk about quite a few different things here. But the main idea for this is that we're tying this mnemonic, chewing, to an activity that we're doing. So every time you're eating food, every time you're chewing, you can go through this checklist and do a few simple behaviors. All right, and what this does, it's called a mnemonic, right? And each one of those things, in memory terms, is called chunking, right? We're taking a really big concept and we're breaking it into small, manageable parts. So you can just go through this checklist, and then each one of these items will trigger the right concepts. Okay, so that's kind of like the big picture theory. Let's look at this stuff in practice. So the H, we're going to do two things today. The H stands for Hara Hachi Bunme. Now, this is an old Confucian teaching known as the 80% rule, or eating to 80% fullness. Now, I'm not going to go all fluffy East old stuff on you. That's not what this is about. But this is a very sensible thing you might want to do. Like when I was significantly bigger, right? I used to sit down for a meal, and the whole point of the meal is to get full, right? You want to eat your food and you want to feel full because that's what you do at a meal. Or not. Right? Because people who are really overweight, they eat till fullness, but people who are lean, they eat until they're no longer hungry. Big difference, right? So we have, I'm full, I can feel it, maybe, the buttons are starting to burst, I'm starting to feel lethargic, I'm going, oh crap, I ate too much. Like all kinds of problems can stem from this, from indigestion to waking up into the night, late in the night, to burping, to not being able to sleep, just all kinds of problems from eating too much, in addition to not being very good for your waistline, right? So that's the problem of eating too much. Now, if we just eat until we're no longer full, or until we're no longer hungry, the hunger goes away. We're not unpleasant anymore. The job is basically done for the meal. And so lean people, especially like my wife, she's just a naturally lean person. She almost never overeats. She just eats until she's no longer hungry. And there's a big difference between those two. So also, this is one of the practices that has stuck for a very long time, and the Japanese Okinawans, who, if you know, they're some of the longest lived people on earth, this is one of the things that they practice on a regular basis. And here's some Okinawan soba noodles, and you'll find, it's funny to see this cola in the picture. Usually you won't have your own glass of pop. Like in Asia, you'll be sharing something, although it's definitely increasing over the years. I lived in Korea for 13 years, if you don't know that about me. But not a lot of pop with meals. That's not a thing that they generally do. And if you do, it's like, we'll have a can of Coca-Cola and we'll share it amongst the 6 of us. So a very different relationship with liquid calories. So that's Hara Hachi Bunme. That's the first one. Eat until 80% full, not beyond that. The whole point is to not feel hungry anymore, and then we're done. So the next thing in chewing is the C, which stands for, you guessed it, Chewing. All right, so we start off our meal, we're chewing, we realize that we need to chew our food, and then we're going to do that check for, am I 80% full yet? But let's talk about chewing a little bit, because there's some really interesting research, and it has a whole lot of benefits, and we'll share some of that research in just a minute. But first, let's talk about the bottomless bowl experiment. So I first heard about this, or read about this, in Brian Wansyk's book, Mindless Eating, and it's a great little book. I'd check it out. Mindless Eating. And actually, before that, I heard about it from Paul Rozin, who is a professor at UPenn who looks at satiety and how, for example, the French, when they enjoy, say, an ice cream cone, and Americans enjoy an ice cream cone, and they both say, let's say, they both have a large ice cream cone, even though the sizes are very, very different, they both feel like they've had a large ice cream cone. They're both satisfied the same. But if you don't have the whole thing, then you're not satisfied with the experience. So we like to eat in units. We rely a lot on visual cues, and the bottomless bowl experiment is a very good example of this. So what is the bottomless bowl experiment, and why is it so important to us right now? So I'm checking out our time here. We're at about the 6-minute mark, so we'll just keep going. Researchers had about 6 quarts of tomato soup, and then like a food grade pipe that goes into the participants' bowl. Got a bunch of hungry people off the street, said, hey, come on in, you want a free meal? And then they ate their soup. And they found that the people that had the bottomless bowl, as compared to those that had a normal bowl, ate about 70% more and did not feel any more full. Now, you'd expect if you're eating 70% more, 100% would be twice as much as your normal meal, that you would feel a bit more full than usual. But we rely so much on our visual cues and external cueing for our eating that we miss the internal cues and our hunger, satiety, our internal cueing. So we need to kind of block out a lot of the external stimuli and focus more on the internal experience if you want to develop intuitive eating, if you want to start feeling full naturally instead of just relying kind of randomly on, did somebody, Mindless Eating is a great book for this stuff. Like, did somebody leave food within arm's reach of you? Because you're a lot more likely to eat it if it's within arm's reach. Do you leave a bunch of crap out on the table that you can walk by and consume? Are other people putting food onto your plate? Like, there's so many external things that can happen that can affect your meal size that you're probably not even aware of. So the whole point is to rely less on external stimuli and start relying more on internal stimuli. And chewing your food, literally chewing it, experiencing it, is a really good way to do that. So we know that if you chew your food more, you're going to reduce the speed of your meal, and we're going to reduce hunger. All right, so if we're chewing our food more, we're going to eat a little bit slower. We're going to be more full on fewer calories, basically. And what is going to increase are your gut bacteria and your satiety, as well as your enjoyment. This is a little happy taco. Tacos make us happy anyway, but it's going to make that taco taste even better if you're paying attention to it, if you're enjoying the experience. So how do we chew our food? And then where's the research actually is saying this? So we'll go through that in just a minute. But here's how we chew our food. So most people, especially overweight people, they'll sit down, they'll devour a meal some people will just down a burrito as if I don't even know how they taste it. They eat stuff so fast. I used to be a fast eater myself, and after chewing my food, after slowing down, after appreciating things more, completely changed the way that I eat, experience food, and it affected my waistline in very predictable but very enjoyable, personally liberating ways. So next time you have a meal, as you practice day 2 of the challenge, try this. You might want to be in a private place because people might think you're crazy, but I do this in public all the time. Close your eyes. Look at the food first. Get it into your mouth so that you don't poke yourself in the eyeball. But then you want to close your eyes so that you're not distracted by the visual cues outside of you. Again, I'm an extremely visual person, and so I enjoy my food far more if I don't have the visual stimuli out here. And then focus on the internal cues. All right, so we have what's going on inside the mouth. I'm chewing the food. What are the first few chews like? Let's say the first 10 chews. What's that experience? How about the next 10? So you're going up to 20 now. How about the next 10? Can we even get to 30? When does it become kind of silly to chew anymore, right? But go through that process until you're just like, it really makes no more sense to chew this stuff, or I can't chew this food anymore. And that allows you to slow down, experience it. And then as you start paying more attention to your chewing, you can really start to experience the food more, which increases enjoyment, and it leads down a lot of different avenues. I'll go on a quick tangent about beer. Like I was just doing my first beer brewing this last weekend, and you taste all the raw ingredients as you're brewing the beer, so that once you've brewed the beer, you can taste them and how they've changed over time. And you do this with your food as well. So like, where are you chewing the food? Is it in the back of your mouth, molars, on the front teeth? Do you push it to the sides? Can you feel the different ingredients separating? Can you even taste all the ingredients? Do you even know what all the ingredients are? I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Tim Ferriss, for example, but in one of his books, he talks about taking apart each, like how he loves to play with his food and separate the different parts of the food so he can taste each ingredient and then start tasting combinations of ingredients and then taste the whole thing and see how they all kind of come together. It's just a completely different experience with your food. Is this food sour? Is it sweet? Does it change? What am I getting from the nose before I taste it? What am I experiencing? What lingers afterwards? The experience of eating is so much more than most people have. It's right there for you at every single meal, but most people are only getting a tiny little fraction of it, especially those who are overweight. So let's chew our food. Let's maybe close our eyes, pay more attention to the experience, and see what we can find. Because the research says good things about it. It's good for your waist, and it's also good for your enjoyment, as will be highlighted in one of these studies here very soon. So I just wanted to give you a little quick insight into the process. Let's go back here for just a second. So I want you to know that you can trust a lot of the information that you're getting from me. You should be able to trust all of it, but like never take somebody's word that you can trust them. Like go out, do the research, check the facts on your own, because sadly there are too many charlatans, there are too many news reporters, there are too many people taking little bites of this or that or the other thing, and a lot of the studies simply can't be trusted. So if you ever want to fact check something, here's like a really simple, easy way to go about it. So first off, one of your best friends is going to be PubMed. You type the word that you're looking for into PubMed. So for example, chewing. And you can find, like I highlighted right here, we have effects of chewing on appetite, food intake, and gut hormones. So you can go verify some of what I said right there. Now maybe we want to find more out about chewing and satiety. Okay, well we can type in chewing satiety. And then we can look at the effects of mastication on food intake, satiety, and body weight. What is mastication? Type that into Google. You find out that it's just a technical term for chewing. You'll see it used by orthodontists, dentists, and different researchers. So once we look at mastication, maybe we can check out the research on that. Okay, now we have mastication. We can pop that into PubMed, see some of these studies here. And let's get even more specific because we're talking about horses and orthodontics and different things. So we look at mastication satiety, and now we find some interesting stuff like a systemic review, a meta-analysis, and that might be good to do if you're not familiar with reading research, like a systemic review. Basically, it's a bunch of researchers that went out and surveyed the literature. So they're doing the same things we're doing right now with PubMed, but they looked at a whole bunch of the studies, they delved into them, they made sure the quality was pretty good, and they went, what are the findings on, for example, mastication satiety? Awesome. Wouldn't it be great to have somebody else basically who's qualified to be doing the research, not just some journalist that finds out about a preliminary report that really doesn't have anything going for it? Wouldn't it be nice if you had a bunch of researchers doing a thorough review of the research and then giving you the results? So that's kind of what a systemic review is. And then a meta-analysis is where you just basically take a whole bunch of data and we look at that data as an aggregate. So we might have data from a whole bunch of different studies. We find out where they cross, and then we try to find out what we can use from this essentially larger data set. So anyway, both two kind of very useful shortcuts. And so effects of chewing on appetite, that'll give you the results that we were talking about in the previous slide. And I just wanted to highlight this one right here to tell you, to show you kind of the importance of this, because it just does an excellent job kind of summarizing a lot of the things that I'm trying to do with this challenge, and it gives you like a really good idea of like why so many other challenges fail and why you're going to succeed with this one. So let's look at this. A combined mindfulness prolonged chewing intervention. I'm saying chew your food. This is what we're looking at here in this study. Reduces body weight. You want to lose weight? Hey, maybe chewing your food's going to help. Food craving. Do you suffer with cravings? Hey, maybe chewing your food's going to help. And emotional eating. So what we know about men in general is they eat a bit more at mealtime. This is a generality. Men generally tend to eat more at mealtime, and women generally tend to eat emotionally. So if you have either of these things going on, emotional eating, guess what? Chewing your food's probably going to help. And we're at the 14-minute mark. I might go a couple minutes over again today just because this is really good stuff, and I hope you forgive me. So let's look at the objective here. Conventional weight loss programs that induce a calorie deficit. So things where like you're doing calorie counting, you're trying to bring the calories down in order to lose weight. mostly fail in long-term weight reduction. Guess what? You're trying to reduce your calories. You do that for a while, you lose some weight, but long-term, what happens? You gain the weight back. Why is that? Because disadvantaged eating styles often remain unchanged. All right, you're not changing the underlying behavior. You are changing the outcome. You're watching your calories and you're doing things differently for a little while, but long term, you're not doing anything different. That's why all the weight comes back. All right, now this is just the objective. Mindfulness interventions therefore redirect the focus away from weight loss goal. So we're not just like obsessing about the number on the scale, but instead toward the process of eating itself. We're looking at the process instead of just the outcome, because process drives outcome. All right, and then we find, well, they're hypothesizing that this is going to indirectly reduce daily caloric intake and have fewer cravings that are, people are going to eat less due to cravings and stress. So we do 4 things. We say PIPO, P-I-P-O. And in my book, I cover the first 2 right here. So O is outcome. That's the number on the scale that you're going for, right? You want to lose weight. That's the outcome that we're all going for. But what happens? Process drives outcome. Okay, in the book, what I'm telling you with the 151 is that we were saying that the sleep, training, awareness, NEPA, and diet are the things you want to be focusing on for the process, and that's going to help you drive the outcome of weight loss. And we go from a red to a yellow to a green level. Each time you progress, you're going to see better and better progress. Okay, so that's kind of, we want to process focus instead of an outcome focus, because just thinking about a number on the scale, obsessing about that, you actually might do a lot of the wrong things to drive that number when really it's a short-term fix instead of a long-term fix. And then these things I kind of just reserve for boot camp and coaching. All right, so let's look at the results of this study here. This is amazing. So first off, guess what? It did result in a decrease in body mass index. So BMI, you probably heard about this from your doctor. BMI is simply your weight in kilograms over your height in meters squared. Height's probably not changing, so guess what? Your waist is changing. You're losing some weight. So this is basically weight loss and disadvantageous eating styles, food cravings, emotional and external eating. So those decreased, and an increase in intuitive eating. Ooh, that's kind of nice. That's the unconscious competence we were talking about yesterday in the first video, right? We wanted to develop this unconscious competence. We wanted it to be intuitive and automatic. So when you start chewing your food, you start paying attention, you start listening to your internal cues more so than your external cues, and you are able to eat to be a leaner person without really having to work at it. Doesn't that sound like a good outcome, right? Maintained after a 4-week follow-up. 4 weeks, not a very long time. They suggest doing a longer study, but at least we know that after the intervention stopped, guess what? The results were persistent, at least for a while. And this strongly impacted energy intake and related eating styles. Obviate loss-oriented calorie reduction. Obviate means to remove or prevent. So we're not focusing on the outcome, we're focusing more on the process. And foster enjoyment and focused tasting of foods. We're enjoying our food more because we're paying attention to it. All right, so good stuff from chewing. Let's wrap it up here. So the assignment for today is simply to chew your food, practice hara hachi bunmei, let's just say the 80% rule. When you notice that you're getting full, stop. Or when you're getting close, stop. If you're no longer hungry, we can stop. All right, and then just report in on your results tomorrow, and I look forward to hearing 1, what did you find most useful from this video? Did you like hearing a little bit of the background, a little bit of the research? And 2, what's your experience? Did you notice anything different? Did you go, wow, like 20 bites is a lot, or wow, 30 bites is a lot, or I can't believe, that it disintegrated in 10 bites or something like that. Anyway, just share what you found most useful and your experience, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow for the rest of your chewing experience to share some more useful tips with you and a little less research. We'll keep it a little quicker. All right, thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.